I do have to issue an apology, unfortunately, and I have to read this because I need to get it right. On yesterday's programme, I frequently referred to the Conservative MP for Ashfield, Lee Anderson, as being, and I quote now, as thick as mince. I'd like to take this opportunity to apologise to Mince.
We have internal problems with this country, but some of the problem we've got, Sangita, is the fact that we have too much population, whatever colour they are. We have too many people. That's why the NHS doesn't work. Too many people. It was made for 40 million people. It's covering double that now. No wonder it doesn't work. Local services were made for a set number of people. We're now bringing more and more people in. So we're exacerbating the problem we've already got by bringing more and more people in. 800 this week. 4,000 a month. How can we keep taking these numbers of people when we can't even provide for what we've got?
You do know that when they arrive here, they're supposed to be processed through the asylum system, the asylum immigration system. And what's actually happening, Jonathan, is that system, it's gone beyond breaking point. The backlogs are such, the backlogs are such that we have got people waiting 18 months to 2 years for an assessment. Could it actually be that what we are seeing is a collapse in the system, and that it isn't the fault of people who are coming here seeking shelter from war, in some cases economic hardship, fleeing environmental disaster, fearing their lives because they may be gay, for example, and in the countries that they come from, they can't live peacefully. Do you not think that the real problem here is system collapse? And the only people responsible for that system collapse is the government of the day.
What it is, and you know what I'm going to say, it's been identified, because we've had to think this way, the system is against these people because we don't want them. They are not our problem. There's no problem with the system.
I'm totally confused by why you keep saying they're not our problem. If somebody comes to our shores seeking help, I don't see them... Hang on a minute, Jonathan. I don't see them as a problem. I see them as a human being who has to be subject to the systems that we have of the day to assess what their claim is and whether or not under international law, including the European Convention on Human Rights, to which we are signatories, or the 1951 Convention, the UN Convention on Refugees, I don't see them as a problem. I see them as a human being potentially in a great deal of need. And I see us as a first world country, the 6th largest economy in the world. And I see them as people who may need shelter and as people who might be bringing something to this country. That's how I see them. So why do you see them as a problem?
Yes, but you've just said earlier in your programme that we're poorer now, apart from London, we're poorer than Mississippi. So how can we be this rich nation?
You are mixing two things. You are completely mixing two things up.
Really not. It's you that's wrong. You are completely wrong.
Okay, let me tell you. Well, hang on a minute. Wait a minute, Jonathan. What am I wrong on exactly? Because first of all, you start this conversation by saying to me that, Sangita, you're absolutely right. The reason we've got massive waiting lists, bigger than ever before, the reason we can't buy houses, the reason our economy has flatlined is not because of this 100,000 asylum seekers. And now you're saying it is. So which one is it, Jonathan?
I'll tell you which one it is, Sangita. You're wrong.
First of all, get my name right. First of all, get my name right. What is my name? Jonathan, what is my name? What is my name, Jonathan? You cannot talk until you get my name right. It is sheer laziness on your part that you cannot be bothered to say the name of the presenter who you are speaking to. So say my name correctly, and then we can carry on having a conversation. What is my name, Jonathan?
You're just picking on the next thing.
What is my name?
You're so sad.
What is my name?
Sad.
You won't be bothered because you do not think my name is worth saying. And why is that, Jonathan?
I think, right, you're wrong. And you're just using this name thing now because you're being picky, because you're losing the argument.
I'm certainly not losing the argument, my friend.
Completely.
Not
people
on any level am I
not getting what they want.
Okay, hang on a minute.
Too many people.
Hang on. You think this country is, quote unquote, full and we have too many people. You think we have no legal obligations to assess the claims made by asylum seekers wrong. You seem to think that the reason you can't get a hospital appointment, or whoever it is you think can't get a hospital appointment, is because of these asylum seekers. You are wrong. You seem to think the housing crisis is because of these few thousand people. You are wrong. I have not lost this argument in any way, shape or form. And you, Jonathan, do not have the decency to ring up this radio station and say my name properly. My friend, this call is over. Call me again when you've learnt what it is.
I've been working as a junior doctor for the last 10 years now. I'm an A&E registrar. And my experience is that frontline services are so stretched that we're in the position that you have had almost all healthcare workers going on strike this year. How do you think your refusal to negotiate with us improves morale or standards of care?
Well, Olivia, thanks for everything you and your colleagues do. You obviously do a fantastic job. I was talking earlier in the show about my family's involvement in the NHS and how personal it is to me. So thank you for that, first of all. We're all reliant on you, and it was a great privilege to celebrate 75 years with the NHS recently. Now, look, you and I sadly are just going to disagree on this, but I'm proud of what we've done. We've invested record sums in the NHS since I became Prime Minister. Not only that, just the other week we announced the first ever long-term workforce plan for the NHS, so we can deliver something that has been asked for decades, and for the first time as Prime Minister I've delivered it, which means that we will train more doctors, more nurses, more of everyone, in fact, dentists, GPs, everything, so we're less reliant on foreign-trained clinical staff. So that's the right long-term thing for the country that I've done and prioritised and put funding behind. And we're reforming how the NHS works to get people the care they need, and supporting you and your colleagues to do that.
But more staff are leaving. They're jetting off to Australia, I read.
Actually, far fewer than people think. And we looked at that. We looked at that as part of considering how to reform the workforce. And that is a smaller phenomenon than people think. And, some of Olivia's colleagues have done that, but it's not the vast majority. So we think the current policy is right. But what I would say is, look, over 1 million NHS workers have accepted the government's pay deal. Many of them on salaries and incomes far lower than consultants and indeed Olivia and her colleagues. That's just the reality of it. And I'm really grateful to them, the 1 million NHS workers, there's several unions, all of whom accepted the government's offer, and the millions of other public sector workers like teachers and others who have also accepted the government's offer based on recommendations from the independent pay review bodies, not the government's view. This is an independent recommendation. Government accepted it. All these other unions and millions of public sector workers, including the NHS, have accepted it. Now, there are a few exceptions, including junior doctors and consultants. That's what's causing the waiting list to go up. I don't think that's right. I would say to them, I'm very grateful and respectful of the incredible job you do, but we all have a shared mission to bring the waiting list down. I've done my bit by backing the NHS with a long-term workforce plan and record funding, and I would ask people to think about accepting what is an independent offer and come and do the thing that I know you want to do, which is serve patients.
Let's get a quick response from a woman who's on the front line. Quick response, Olivia, if you would, before we move on. Olivia?
I think it's amazing that we're blaming the increasing in waiting lists on doctors going on strike. You're losing staff because we're undervalued, and it's not just doctors, it's everyone. We're all leaving. A happy workforce is your responsibility. You're the Prime Minister, you're the government, your staff aren't happy. That's your fault. And ultimately, that's not good for patients, because retaining staff is one of the bedrocks of making sure that you have good patient safety. You cannot keep the NHS running with the staff shortages that it has. And to keep us here, you have to keep us happy. That is your job. None of us are happy.
I would just say, Olivia, so if you look, when you have the time, please go look at the long-term workforce plan. It's the NHS.
I've read it. I get it. It's great. I love the fact that you're bringing in tons of new people, but there's going to be no one there to train or educate or supervise them. And you cannot be safe without senior staff on the wards training, educating and supervising.
So there's three parts of the plan, actually. So one is to train more people. The second one is to retain more people. So there's a whole section of the plan about improving retention, which I agree with you is important. And the third part of it is reforming how we work. And I think you said you're working in A&E as well. One of the things we're introducing are anaesthetist associates, which are a new role which will help provide high quality care to people. But look, fundamentally, you and I are not going to agree, because your union is asking for a 35% pay rise. I don't think that's reasonable. I don't think that's affordable. I don't think that's fair. And millions of others have accepted the recommendations, and I would urge your union to do the same.
You describe yourself as working class. Sir Keir, define working class.
No, working class is families that work for their living, earn their money through going out to work every day, not through other means.
Middle classes do that?
Well, working class families have the ordinary hope to get on in life. I mean, this has been
Don't
a story.
Middle classes have that?
Yeah,
as
of course
well?
they do. Of course they do.
So what's the distinction?
I was addressing a particular thing, I think, with working class families, which is this sense that. So I talked about the nagging voice that many families have, that this isn't for you, this isn't for me, and I think that holds people back. But I do, because people will say to me, "Well, look here, you've come a long way.
Yeah, but you went to state school.
Yeah, but that is the ordinary hope of the working class, which is to have a decent education, to get a decent, secure job, to get a car, to get have a nice holiday, to have.
But isn't that the middle class too, Sir Keir? Everything you just listed? No,
it is. Yeah, it is, and that's why many people go on their life journey from what you might call working class to middle class. I don't find that at all surprising.
Okay.
I find that very ordinary, and I find it very uplifting. I think that is the inner spirit within the British public of wanting to get on in life. I feel people have been held back, and that's why I was saying essentially yesterday, let's stop the decline and go for national renewal and capture the spirit of the British people as we do it.
We take less refugees than Germany, France, Italy. So, we can all come up with statistics to show that we are a very welcoming country. But in terms of the refugee situation, we're not particularly welcoming.
Yes. Well, no, I was trying to give an overall context to our society and whether or not we're a compassionate society or not. Are we?
I don't think we are necessarily. We are towards certain groups of people. We are towards Ukrainians, because in terms of the refugees and the ease in which Ukrainian refugees can come, and why a lot of people are coming over on boats, because there's no legal route for them to come. Now, if we are to create a more legal route for them to come from Afghanistan, who supported us, and from these other countries, we'd get less people coming over on boats.
Yeah, okay, that's great. So we want less people to come across on boats. Rishi Sunak has said that. Do you think he's politically posturing, John? Do you think he really wants to open up these routes, make it safer for people? Or do you think he's just playing a political card?
He wants less people to come over on boats, but I don't think he wants to open up a safe and legal route for them to come. So really, if we were to open up a safe and legal route for them to come, you would have people coming over legally.
Some people have legitimately held concerns about the amount of people coming to this country, notably those who have to live next door to people they don't know about. They see hotels that are full. They see public services being stretched, or at least that's their fear and it's their perception. How do you address the worries that those people have and the concerns?
Are we worried about Ukrainians coming over? There are many more Ukrainians coming over. We seem to accept them. And of course, that's going to be a strain on the economy. That's going to have many coming over. But so why do we accept Ukrainians coming over, but not other people from Syria and Iraq? I wonder.
Well, you tell me then. What do you wonder?
Why are so many? Well, I know why. Because there's certain people are considered to be more worthy than others. Be it men, women towards men, gay people towards straight people, black people towards white people, Ukrainians or Syrians. Why do we presume that Ukrainians are more worthy? Why do we use the language of rapists and murderers and criminals coming over from Syria and Iraq, but there are no rapists, murderers, or criminals coming from Ukraine?
Well, what do you say to people who've taken Ukrainians in from that war zone? Let's say women and children. What do you say to those people? Do you think that the people who opened up their homes and houses to Ukrainian women and children are somehow showing a bias?
How many have they opened up their houses to Syrian women and children who are coming from war zones, or Iraqi women and children, or Afghan women and children? These are the victims. Forget about the political situation, whether they are the war zone with Russia and Ukraine as opposed to, the interfighting in Syria or Iraq. Why do we feel more empathy towards Ukrainian women and children than Syrian women and children?
But I just asked you what you would say to somebody that opened up their home to, for instance, a Ukrainian woman and child, or man as well, in fact. Do you think that those people are in some way prejudiced? Is this what you're suggesting?
Well, if you ask them whether they would take a Syrian woman and child into their house, there is your answer. And how many of them would take a Syrian woman or child into their house? So it's fair. I think it's fairly obvious. Do you hear of many people taking Syrian, Iraqi, Afghan women and children into their homes in the same numbers that are taking Iraqi women and children?
I've got a woman called Yulia and a daughter, a 14-year-old called Sophia, who we took into our home. They're from a place called Mariupol. And Max has just joined them, who is the father who has got out of Ukraine. He's now diabetic. They've left some family there, and some of them are still living underground in Mariupol. Are you suggesting in some way that I have shown prejudice or bias for taking those people into my home?
Have you ever considered taking a Syrian mother and child into your home, or an Iraqi?
No, I didn't before because I wasn't but all I'm asking you is, are you telling me that I'm biased or prejudiced because I have taken them into my home? Are you suggesting that that's the case?
Not at all. You're showing empathy. But who do you show empathy to?
The Homes for Ukraine scheme was the Homes for Ukraine scheme, and the people that I spoke to here after the invasion of Ukraine, the people that I spoke to, they laid out a story that was easily understandable. The narrative was there in front, and I had a place that we could put them, and it was the right thing for me to do. Did I know about Syrians, Iraqis, Yemenis, Eritreans? Less so, but that doesn't make me. That doesn't mean that I should be negatively judged.
Not at all, Andrew. But why do you know more about Ukraine than about Yemen and Syria? Because as a society, we care more about. So therefore, it's nothing to do with you. It's to do with the society and the culture we live in that will promote worthy people more than others. And who are the worthy people we promote? Why do you know about Yemen? This has been going on for years. Why do you not know about Syria? Why do you not know about Iraq?
I do actually know a fair amount about all of these things. I just resent the idea of having a finger pointed at me that I am somehow being biased towards people with white skin rather than that a different colour skin or a different culture. If I see suffering, John, I see suffering. I don't want to be judged on that, thanks.
So what? 1 second. Why don't we see suffering in Iraq and Syria and Yemen?
We talk about these things a lot. Does that mean that we shouldn't talk about Ukraine?
Why don't we? So that is why, because you know what would happen, Andrew?
Yeah.
If you saw suffering in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, yes, and you did not see suffering in Ukraine, you would have taken Syrians, Iraq, and Yemenis, and not Ukrainians. But why do you see suffering from Iraq from Ukraine, and not these other countries?
It was a very, very big news story, and I grant you that the way that the news story was presented and is presented is something that people relate to a lot easier in Ukraine than in other places. So it's a fascinating discussion, John, and I'm glad we got into it. We're supposed to be talking about Gary here, and you know where
it's a similar situation because we are now talking about the unworthiness of these people coming over on boats, which is why we have no empathy for them.
Who is talking about the unworthiness of that? I mean, we talk about this all the time and about how it should be stopped, John.
1 second. It should be stopped, but we don't feel empathy with the ones who are coming over. What Gary said about the language used towards the people coming over on boats, rapists, murderers, is similar to the language used about the Jews in Germany in the 1930s, and it is similar to that. Now, I'm not suggesting for a minute, and neither is Gary, that this is what that's going to be. But the language used is exactly the same because they were considered to be unworthy. Yeah. So therefore, no one cares about them. Yeah. So no one thinks like they go through and getting on a boat.
Well, really, what I'd like to say is that both you and your contributor fail to accept that different age groups might have experienced something differently. If I just give you just a short, I bought a house 30 odd years ago. Mm-hmm. I lost £10,000 on that house within 2 years because of negative equity. I paid 16.5% interest. Could you tell me how it is I'm better off than people today, even at 4.5%, wherever it is? How is it that you?
Shall I tell you why?
You can't tell me why, because anything other than accepting that I've had it difficult. I've got children that are the age group that you're talking about now. Mm-hmm. And if you fail, how is it now so popular that people go out, drink coffee, get their nails done, their eyelashes done? They can freely spend their money on whatever they do, and my children
Did you not have coffee back in the 70s, Robert? You not have any coffee?
I wouldn't have paid £4 or £5
Well, no, that would have been unlikely given the inflationary differences.
And I won't pay it now.
Well, good for you. But shall I tell you why you're wrong in terms of the difference? The difference is, yes, you may have been paying briefly, it has to be said, not consistently, briefly, 15% interest rates. The difference is now is that even with interest rates at 4 or 5%, in real terms, that is a bigger burden for someone taking out a mortgage today because of the difference in house prices. When you were buying your house, whenever it was, back in a few decades ago, when you were buying your house, relative house prices were only 3 to 4 or maybe 5 times average income. Now they are 7, 8, 9 or 10 times average income. So in real terms...
You're basing that on the knowledge that you know everybody's income, aren't you? See, what you're doing...
No, it's called an average. That's why I'm using the word average.
No, what you're doing...
Obviously, I don't know everybody's income. I don't have a piece of paper here saying that.
You're failing to accept that the possibility is that just my age group and yours and my children's have all got different challenges to bear.
Yeah, of course, everybody has different challenges. Of course they do. I've said that at the very beginning, but I'm talking. But Robert, we've got to talk. The point is that we've got to talk generally and looking at the economic data across generations. Of course, people within the generations are going to have different challenges, and they're going to be rich people, they're going to be poor people. Different generations will have different challenges. Of course, no generation has it completely easy. Of course, they don't. But what I struggle to understand is why people like yourself, with respect, don't acknowledge, just on the basis of the empirical data, that on house prices, on wages, which are the things that matter most, is that the generation below you and the one below that has had it much more difficult than your own.
No, I don't believe that.
Yeah, but you might not believe it. It's just fact. It doesn't matter what you believe.
It's not fact, because you're not considering that whilst my daughter's at university, I'm married and have stayed married for the years that I have, because I'm a homeowner, now I'm having to fund my daughter's accommodation for £5,000 to £6,000 to £7,000 a year.
Yeah.
My parents didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
So there you go.
But I'm talking about wages, and I'm talking about house prices.
But my wages at the age that I am are having to be spent on other things that people in their 40s aren't even considering.
But when did you buy your house, Robert?
I said to you about 30 years ago.
30 years ago. How much has it gone up in value since then?
I'm not in the same house, am I?
Well, okay. Well, how much do you think you've consistently sort of bought up, right? There is no way we're going to see house price appreciation, the sort of which that your generation has enjoyed. How much did you buy your first house for?
How much did I buy? It was about £58,000.
£58,000. The average house price today has accelerated in that in real terms by an enormous amount. So,
and what am I going to have to do with my house if I have to go into a home? Me, because I spent all my life...
Well, at least you're going to have that. What's my generation going to have? We're not even going to have a home to do that. That's the point I'm making.
No, well, you're missing the point.
No,
because
you just don't want to hear it.
If you don't have a home to go in, you'll get trundled off to a care home.
Oh, good.
That my house will be taken away from me. That's yesterday's point about it.
So you'll get to choose. You'll get to choose the sort of care that you have and have a good quality care, and hope the rest of us. But I just don't understand why it is that people of your generation simply aren't able to accept the empirical facts. You say you don't believe it. It's just a fact. You know what? Like I said, what I said to Rachel Cunliffe, it's absolutely fine. Good luck to you. I am so glad that you had that house price increase and you benefited from it. I'm so glad that you had the price, that you had stable. I'm so glad that there was real price, real wage growth in that time. So glad. Yeah. Good for you. I just wish we'd had it the same, and I just wish you would recognise that the generations below you have not enjoyed those things. It's just fact.
You don't know that you won't have it the same.
Well, we've had 13 years. We have 15 years since the financial crisis. We haven't had it. A whole generation's already been scarred. There's no recovery from that. It's already affected permanently people's long-term wage growth. That is a fact.
So the prices of houses didn't go down last month then?
They went down for 1 month, Robert. They went down for 1 month. Do you think that's going to reverse literally 15 to 20 years of this stuff? It went down for 1 month, mate.
Because it did 30 years ago. Because it's happened before. You're missing... Okay.
So you think it's going to go back down to 58 grand, the average, when you bought your house? You think the average house, which is currently over £250,000, is going to go back down to 58 grand anytime soon?
Yeah, it might it?
Okay, maybe it might. Lots of things might happen.
We're taking things out of context. God has given the mandate, the outline for a biblical marriage, and that is for man and woman. If there are two men and they said that they love God, that's fine. They can do what they want. but they should not come and tell and dictate to Christians how they should live their life. And even
But they are Christians.
No, what do I'm saying?
But you're dictating to those Christians how they should live their life.
No.
Yeah, you are.
The Bible is the authority and the rules.
God is the authority and the rules.
And how does he communicate to us then?
Well, he sent Jesus, who told us to ignore the Old Testament.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
Oh, please, James. Where did you show me where he says to ignore the Old Testament? If you can prove that to me, then I'll say yes.
I'm going to Google it so that you don't think that I'm being unfair. All right?
Absolutely.
So
now the thing is, can I just say, James, as well?
Well, hang on. I thought this was important.
It absolutely is. You come back on that. You do your little research and come back on that.
Okay.
But I'm saying this homophobic attitude that people like you keep saying there's a homophobic towards. No, not at all. Any true Christian will love all of mankind, and it's all about salvation. Listen, if you had a child that had looked at that nice blue flame in the kitchen and he wanted to touch it, what would you do? Would you let the child...
You're talking nonsense now. I mean that politely. So what is the blue flame? What's the blue flame? Is that... No, hang on. What do you compare? You can't just keep talking. I've been more quiet than I ever am. What are you comparing the flame to?
To hurting somebody being hurt, and you as a parent trying to guard and protect that child from being hurt, from hurting themselves. Why?
But what are they going to get hurt by in the context of their love lives? I don't understand.
No. It's about salvation, James.
Yeah, but what are they going to get hurt? But let's just focus on one word at a time, all right? So you say hurt, I say what does that mean? And you say salvation. That doesn't help anybody. So what are they going to get hurt by? I understand how if I put my hand in a fire, my hand will get hurt. How are people having... blessings in church, gay people having blessings in church, how are they going to get hurt?
Because if the church condones what they're doing, they're not sticking to the mandate.
But the church does condone it.
Yes. No. What do you not understand what I'm saying?
No, I haven't got a clue. I think that makes two of us. So the church does condone. The Archbishop of Canterbury and the Synod have just said that it's fine.
Right. Okay. So what I'm saying is.
So the church does condone it?
No. He's not going with a biblical mandate, though, James.
But he's the Archbishop of Canterbury.
He is not the authority of God.
But he is. In the Anglican community, he's the head honcho. Well, I suppose technically it's King Charles.
He thinks he is, but he's not, because he's perverting the Scriptures.
So you know better than he does?
No, I don't know. The Scriptures knows.
Which Scriptures?
This is what it is. The Bible.
Which bit?
From Genesis to Revelation, all is truth. God's revelation to mankind.
But that never says anything about homosexuality.
Are you being real? In the book of Leviticus, in the book of Deuteronomy, it talks about men laying with men.
But Leviticus also talks about burning a bull on the altar as a sacrifice because the odour would please the Lord.
Oh.
And it says you can sell your daughter into slavery, doesn't it, in Exodus?
Okay, then. So what was the first mandate that God gave to mankind? What was the first thing he said?
I'm afraid I'm going to pull you back to Leviticus and Exodus, mate, because you just cited them. Do you still think it's okay to sell your daughter into slavery?
No, not at all.
Well, why are you picking and choosing then?
No. It's about what God has set in order.
That's Exodus 21:7, mate. You know that as well as I do.
Yeah.
It is okay to sell your daughter into slavery. What would be a fair price, do you think, in this day and age?
No. James, what we've got to understand, I said, you've got to get things in its context.
I am. The context is the book of Exodus and the book of Leviticus, which you just cited as your justification for what I describe as homophobia. So I'm just wondering why you pick that bit and yet you ignore the other bits. Are you allowed contact with a woman while she is in her period of menstrual uncleanliness, Clive?
Yeah.
No, you're not, mate. That's Leviticus 15:19 to 24.
But, again, James, you are taking things out of context.
No, I'm reading it out of the Bible.
You want to bring it back to men and men.
I'm bringing it back to Leviticus, which is what you just told me to do. So how can you tell whether or not a woman is in her period of menstrual uncleanliness?
Okay, all right then. So
how close to it are you allowed to be?
Sure, okay. James, okay then. So
you're going to have to answer some of my questions at least at one point. So let's start with the slavery. Is it okay to sell my daughter into slavery?
No, it's not.
But it says in Leviticus that it is, Exodus that it is.
No, this was what mankind was doing because there was situation and circumstance.
But mankind was also lying with man, and you said that was bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why is that bad, but selling your daughter into slavery is not acceptable?
What we have to get back is to God's ideal.
No, mate, what you have to do is tell me how I can tell which bits of the Old Testament you think we should...
Can I give you an example?
No, you can answer my questions. No,
yes, I'm going to.
No, I said no.
With an example.
No, you can't give me an example. You need to tell me which bits of Leviticus you choose to obey and which bits you don't.
That was never God's plan.
Yeah, you're still just going to talk. You can't answer any of these questions.
Yeah, but I'm giving you a context here, so you can understand.
Right. I don't know if you're familiar with Sangita Maiska, who presents a programme on this radio station on Sunday.
Yes, I've heard.
So that is the Sabbath day. Sangita presents on the Sabbath day.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't present on the Sabbath. What day is that?
Saturday and Sunday she presents.
Okay, sure, yes. Saturday's the Sabbath, yes. Go ahead.
Exodus 35:2 clearly states that she should be put to death.
Why?
Because she's working on the Sabbath, mate.
Oh, no.
It's in Exodus. You just told me to read it.
No. No, I didn't say to read Exodus.
You told me to. You just said Genesis to Revelation. I suggested that the Old Testament had been superseded by the Sermon on the Mount. You said it hadn't. You told me to go back to Leviticus when you were trying to justify your homophobia. I've gone to Exodus. Do I have to kill Sangita Maiska for the sin of working on the Sabbath? Yes or no? It's a simple question.
No, you don't. So,
well, why not? Because the Bible tells me to.
Because this is what I'm trying to explain to you, James. There is a spiritual connotation and there is a physical one. Now, when Jesus came, he explained to us the spiritual context of things. And people will be spiritually dead. Listen to what I'm saying very carefully.
Oh, I am.
They'll be spiritually dead or spiritually kill themselves when they do certain things which is against God and which cuts them off from eternal life.
But do I have to kill Sangita Maiska?
No, I said if she is a believer and she's violating that which she believes, do you understand? Then that is between her and God.
You know that bit. That bit in Leviticus where it says that I can own slaves as long as they are purchased from neighbouring nations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, would that include Wales?
Wales in England.
Well, no, Wales is it a neighbouring nation, or would I have to go to somewhere like France to buy slaves?
I don't know the context of it. I can't answer that directly.
Well, you must know the context because you're handing down the law on homosexuality, so you must know the stuff about this. Is Leviticus 25:44. I may indeed possess slaves provided they are purchased from neighbouring nations. So would that include Wales, or would I have to go all the way to France?
If that's what the scripture says, then that's so.
Okay, so slavery's a good thing. Slavery's allowed then for you as a good Christian. Do you have any slaves?
No, I don't. Okay. I explained to you, James.
Do you have your hair? Can I ask you to describe your current hairstyle to me?
It's bald.
Right, so you've trimmed it around the temples.
Around the temples?
Yeah, you've trimmed your hair around the temples.
Yeah.
Well, that's expressly forbidden by Leviticus 19:27. I have to kill you now.
No, not at all.
Well, yes, this is all in your book, mate.
Again, as I said.
I haven't finished.
Yes.
What are you wearing?
So you've got to get it in this context.
What are you wearing at the moment, Clive?
I'm wearing one robe with all one thread.
And what colour? No, you're not, though, are you? Because even you know how hypocritical you're sounding now, because you're not allowed to wear two different kinds of thread.
No.
You're blaspheming.
Not at all.
Well, mate, you just are. You just like the bit that hurts the gays, but you're happy to ignore the rest of it. Why do you think that is?
Can I say to you,
No,
James,
you can answer my question. Why do you pick the bit out of all of these books that discriminates against homosexuals, but you ignore all of the rest of it?
There's some laws that were done away with at the cross, but the moral law of liberty, the 10 Commandments...
I'm going to ask you for the final time, why do you choose to obey the bit that harms gay people while ignoring the rest of it?
It doesn't harm them. They're harming themselves because they're violating
there it is, but you're definitely not homophobic.
They're absolutely not.
Okay, mate.
Westminster is essentially a cesspit for this stuff, and it feels like nothing's really being done about it. I mean, the ICGS was formed, I think, 5 years ago, following the Me Too movement. Yeah. And since then, it's not done enough. It's not done enough to allow staffers like myself to feel confident in the process that's there to protect them. And frankly, it takes too long. I think we've seen recent reports that it takes over 200 days to complete a complaint. And that is too long. Victims could still be working in the palace, perhaps for the person that they've complained against, or within this environment to the person they've complained against. And they're waiting up to a year or close to a year for any kind of justice or result from that. And
which is a ridiculously long amount of time.
Well, that's not, it's just not good enough. It's not. And people, come to me following what my piece with Newsnight and have said, I completely agree, and this has happened to me, but I don't feel like I can talk about it. And that to me is just so upsetting, but also frustrating that we don't have, with the greatest democracy in the world, frankly, and we can't seem to allow people to feel confident enough to say, this happened to me, and say, okay, yeah, we'll sort that out and we'll get that for you, we'll sort that for you.
So you started working in Parliament in 2019?
2020, yes. After the election, yeah.
And just describe to me the atmosphere, but also how quickly you realised what the real atmosphere was actually like.
It was within weeks. I was having a drink after work, as most people do, and I said, is there anyone that I should be a little bit cautious of? And I didn't mean it in the sense that when the way they replied, they reeled off a list of names.
And why did you ask the question in the first place? Because you got a whiff of something, or?
Westminster's got that reputation, let's be honest.
Right.
And I felt it about me. And politics is a sleazy game, shall we say. Some people play it fairly and some people don't.
Yeah.
So I asked that question just along those grounds, and I was given a list of people's names, what they've done, why I should avoid them, how to interact with people. And that
from all parties?
Yeah, all parties, all positions, from staffer to MP, lobbyist, anyone within Westminster, someone had a name on there. And that to me kind of set off a real annoyance that, we know these people do this stuff. We all talk about it. It's the rumours spread across the palace, and yet nothing can really be done. And, I can't go out and cry wolf at every rumour I hear, but it is frustrating that when something comes out in the press, you say, oh, did you hear this? And someone will go, yeah, I knew about that ages ago. And so it seems just people can run rife without any repercussions.
And this includes people who are quite senior in government?
Yeah, of all parties. Of all power, it happens. And people don't feel confident to say anything about it.
And did it happen to you as well?
I've experienced a lot. I've witnessed a lot. I think that, I'm not here and I'm not a victim to much. And I think what I have witnessed in terms of an experience, the hand on the hip, the hand on the leg, the brushing of the arm, the standing too close to you in the bar, inappropriate comments, asking if I'm cold because I'm wearing a short skirt. I mean, and by short skirt, I mean above the knee. It's stuff like that whilst people listening to this might think, that sounds like nothing. That's the surface level of the problem. It's so much more than that. And I wanted to be the voice to the people that don't feel like they have a voice. So many people have said to me, I can't say anything, I can't talk
because
about
they
it.
feel that if they do say something, there might be repercussions against them, and the complaints process won't help them anyway.
Exactly, and you can be seen as a problem. And Westminster needs to change the culture that the person who reports something is a problem. No, the person who's done something is the problem. And I think for too long, that culture of let's just shush this person and protect our friend has gone on for far too long, and I'm sick of it.
It's really interesting. I mean, in private industry, this would be totally unacceptable. We've seen this recently, the Financial Times, the stuff on Chris Minodi and his hedge fund. He's in massive trouble. This is a fund named after him, allegations against him, and basically he's losing his fund, might lose his job, lose a fortune in the process. There are many other examples in the private sphere where this would be unacceptable. Why is it still tolerated in our elected chamber?
I think it's because until people report it, you can't do anything about it. You can have the hearsay and you can have the gossip, but until someone says, this happened to me, you're not going to get anywhere with it. You can't investigate a conversation that happened that's just speculation. But the problem, and the root of the problem, is people don't feel they can report it. So the process is in place. Whilst they have improved over the last 5 years, they're still nowhere near good enough.
These Excel bullies is a different breed, trust me.
But why do you breed them?
Because I absolutely love dogs. I love dogs. I'm passionate about dogs. Absolutely.
Well, breed Jack Russells then.
Jack Russells. I've had 3 Jack Russells. I remember growing up. Little Bobby Harrison, we called him. Loved him to bits, but any type of dog. However, Excel bullies. I'm sorry, Iain. let's not beat around the bush. Let's not beat around the bush. The people who own these dogs, the very vast majority, not all, I'll be honest, not all, but a lot of them, they walk around, not with leads, selling
it's got
things.
nothing. No, I'm sorry, this has got nothing to do. This may have a little bit to do with Leeds, but that's not the whole story. I'm going to ask you a question now. When you decided to breed this type of dog, who were you aiming them at? Who did you want to sell them to, and who did you sell them to?
Drug dealers. I'll be absolutely honest, Ian.
You sold them to drug dealers?
I did.
Well,
you know what, Ian?
I'm tempted to end the call now.
No, I've always said this. Why do you need a licence for a dog and not for a cat? Because cats can't
Sorry,
drive.
you've just admitted that you bred them to sell them to drug dealers. What kind of person does that make you?
Ian, who's going to put bread on the table for my family? I've got 6 kids.
Oh, go to hell, David.
Adam's in Westminster. Adam.
Good afternoon, Tom. If everybody's angry, by the sounds of it, my blood is boiling right now because I seem to wonder, we had an election in December 2019 which would shape the future of this country, Tom. And it seems at the moment we're being usurped by the Supreme Court, the ECHR, Strasbourg, and just about anybody else who wants to throw in the kitchen sink and dictate United Kingdom government policy. Now, the last time I looked, we had 5 years of this government. We're into year number 4. Now, if people don't like the measures that this Conservative government are taking, Tom, they have a simple solution in 12 months' time to make it known in the ballot box.
Oh, they will. They definitely will.
In the meantime, the UK government, which was elected on a vast mandate and increased share of the vote, has got to decide what the law is of this country. Not Strasbourg, not Brussels, not France, and not lunatic lefty lawyers, Tom.
But there will be people, Adam, who will reasonably say, how can Parliament make a legitimate assessment of safety of a particular country? Look at its track record. Look at what those agencies that work in there are saying about it.
Well, Tom, forgive me for sounding cynical, but at the end of the day, these people, human beings who want to jump on a boat and come across to the UK, putting themselves at danger when there is absolutely no danger in France. So, if these people do not want to abide by the law, then clearly the United Kingdom prerogative
legal
is to
requirement
make law
for an individual to claim asylum in the first safe country they come to. There is no legal requirement for them to do so.
That is semantics beyond unbelievability.
How
Tom.
is it semantics? It's the law.
Because people are playing the law to their advantage. The spirit of the law is being absolutely trashed. And I can't wait till Rishi Sunak's Conservative government introduces new legislation to take back control.
Love to the family.
Is it a problem that he's playing for Man United? Is that the problem?
No, I think it would be a problem if he played for anybody. But at the moment, the decision is Manchester United's because he's under contract for another 2 years.
Okay, and obviously it's a girl that he was with from school. He made a huge mistake. So should his future employment be completely terminated for a mistake he made at 18 that he wasn't charged for?
Yeah, I think he was charged.
Right,
he was charged, but he wasn't convicted, and that's a crucial point that you make.
I haven't heard one person come online to say, you know what, he's 18, maybe we need to help him or do this.
No,
Nothing.
but to be fair, this is the
extermination for this kid.
Sean, you're the second caller, and you're making precisely the point you're saying that no one else has made. So it's now 50-50.
Okay, well, fair. That's good. Fair enough.
That's not an opinion, mate. That's counting.
It's not fair, though. It's not fair.
What do you mean it's not fair? I mean,
the level of vitriol against this guy. When people make mistakes and are given second chances every day.
It's not really a mistake, is it? As the last caller said, a mistake is accidentally leaving your keys in the front door.
Yeah, but we don't know their sexual relationship. This is what I mean. There's a lot in this story that hasn't. We don't know their sexual relationship. This is his girl from school.
Yeah.
Yes, it's abhorrent what he done, and this is a huge learning curve for him. But it shows that he's actually now gone on and had a child with the same girl.
I don't know.
Something?
Well, no, it tells me nothing, of course, because victims of domestic abuse very, very often don't leave the scenario.
He was 18. He made a mistake. He's been punished severely for that mistake.
Well, he's been on 75 grand a week throughout, I think, hasn't he?
Yeah, but that's to do with his talent.
So what's the punishment?
Is
the punishment?
He's on 70. So if he was on £8 a week, would that be all right then?
No, I'm just talking about punishment.
Well, he's been stopped from doing what he.
Yeah, but a punishment would be a punishment. And a punishment would. I mean, I'm just pointing out that there could have been much more stringent punishments, perhaps. I don't know what the legal.
And if there was a case to answer at court, there would have been. That's my whole point.
Not without witnesses, Sean.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. How many things of people about witnesses? That's what. If the witness wants to go forward, that's down to the witness.
Yeah. And they didn't.
So. Why is everyone else?
You've already answered that question.
Why is everyone else become judges and juries? I don't get that.
It's not judges and juries. No one's suggesting that he needs to be imprisoned or.
Yeah, but you're suggesting that he shouldn't work.
Yeah, because you're seeing it from the wrong end of the telescope.
Why shouldn't he work again? Why? I don't get that.
You're seeing it from the wrong end of the telescope. Manchester United should not.
Oh, so it is Manchester United. That's my point.
Or Rovers or whatever club you want to talk about.
So you're saying that he should stop work because he's a footballer. So he'd have to play for someone.
I'm saying that no organisation, even if he wanted to go and work for Rent-A-Kill, should be associating themselves with somebody who's done what he's done.
So he should stop work. He should stop his profession. That's what you mean.
Yeah, God, yes. Sorry, I thought that was clear. Okay.
How can he stop work at 19? I don't get that.
All right. Well, what if he was 30?
Does it, as I say...
What if he was 42?
To me, that's a big difference. That's a big difference.
Okay, so it's his age.
Somebody doing something at 18, if you're telling them that you want them to never have a job again, is a bit, extreme.
When you say someone, you're kind of evading the central point that this is a man who has done what he did. This isn't just someone. This is someone who was recorded abusing a woman and attempting to coerce her into sex. A woman who was allegedly subsequently posted pictures of her bleeding face and bruised body. So, I mean, would it be fair to ask me? I don't know how old your children are. Would it be fair to ask me
wrong from my point?
How you explain? How do you explain to your daughter why he should be back on the team?
Yeah. What I would explain to my daughter is,
go on.
He's made a huge mistake. Look at what this idiot's done.
Right.
He's been given a God-blessed talent.
So what's the punishment?
Oh, he's not played for nearly 2 years.
No, moving forward, what's the punishment?
He's not played for nearly 2 years.
Yeah, that's moving backwards. If he's back in the team tomorrow, moving forward, what's the punishment? What's the penalty?
Well, penalty for what? He hasn't been charged with anything.
You just said yourself he's done a disgusting thing.
Yeah, he's done a disgusting thing.
So what's the punishment?
People do disgusting things every day.
So we don't want to encourage them, Sean.
If you had the hypothesis that the government was seeking to destroy the National Health Service, if that were your hypothesis, all the data that we're seeing are consistent with that hypothesis. They may say, no, that's not what we're seeking to do. But if you look from 2010, waiting lists started to increase. Not just the pandemic, not just the war in Ukraine, from 2010. So in the period pre-2010, waiting lists came down, satisfaction with the NHS was high, spending on the NHS went up at about 3.8% per year, up to 2010. That 3.8% increase per year went down to about 1% increase per year. Waiting lists started to climb and climb and climb. 150,000 vacancies for doctors and nurses. Failure to pay doctors and nurses properly. Yeah. It's a recipe for making the NHS fall over.
Are we stumbling or sleepwalking towards a privatised healthcare system, do you think?
Well, that's why I say if you had the hypothesis that this was a sort of a malicious undermining of the NHS, the data we're seeing are consistent with the hypothesis. I have no special insight into what motivates ministers, but they're not behaving as if they want to preserve our NHS. And if you go back to the Commonwealth Fund, which does regular comparisons of healthcare systems in 11 countries, the NHS always used to be number one. And equity of access, number one, the best performed. And we're slipping down the rankings. It's a tragedy.
A political element broke your marriage up, David. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. And thanks for taking me call, yeah.
What happened?
She made a fool of me for all of our married life, really.
Go on.
Because I've always been compassionate and caring about people, and I thought she was the same, and it transpired after a big row we had over refugees and Rwanda and stuff that she said she's always voted Conservative. And it's disgusting, really, isn't it?
Well, no, it's not disgusting to vote Conservative.
Come on.
Well, hang on. No, David, it isn't. It isn't. No,
well, it is really, isn't it?
Well, not always. No, not always. Because is it a specific element of Conservative policy currently that she was favouring that made things difficult, or was it just generally?
Well, if you look what's happened since 2010, all through austerity, which killed hundreds of thousands of people, and then everything that's happened in between, and all this time when I thought she was like me, who cares about people, then she doesn't really care about anybody but herself, maybe. And it was like it was disgusting. It's disgusting. Isn't
And
it?
had she told you she was voting what? Do you vote Labour?
I've always voted Labour, yeah.
And did she tell you she voted Labour?
She never actually come right out and said, but we'd stood in the polling booth together and we voted together. I always assumed she voted Labour.
I'm sorry. Apologies for laughing. I'm not laughing at you, I promise, David. I'm just seeing this image of two people in the polling booth, and you just assume she was voting the same as you. But, I mean, she's allowed to vote any way she wants. You might not agree with it, but is it a reason to leave, to end your marriage?
But don't you think that's disgusting? Voting Conservative all these years. And she's pretending she's compassionate and she cares about people and this and blah, blah, blah. And everything she's always said is if she's a compassionate, caring people when she isn't.
Anyone who listens to this programme knows my view of the current incarnation of conservatism is not a favourable one. But I certainly don't think it's disgusting to vote Conservative.
Oh, honestly?
Yeah. Well, you're going to stop listening to me now, David?
Well,
we can't have a democracy in which we say you are disgusting for voting for a different political party to me. I can pick apart elements of what the Conservatives have done over the last 10 years and tell them it's disgusting. But we'll never know what Jeremy Corbyn would have done if he got into power. We don't know yet what Keir Starmer will do if he gets into power. And elements of what Tony Blair did when he was in power, lots of people think is disgusting. Lots of Labour voters think is disgusting. If you think of Iraq, for example, we can't go down the route of saying if you vote Conservative, you are disgusting.
Well, you're entitled to believe that the principles of conservatism are disgusting.
Of course you are.
You're
you
entitled
are.
to believe that.
You are. I don't agree with you, but
I'm not ashamed to say that I care about people. I'll always vote Labour. So why should someone hide that from me all these years? It's like fox hunting, isn't it? Where they try to justify it. So she's obviously ashamed she should be voting Conservative all these years.
Well, she's probably terrified of your reaction rather than ashamed, because your reaction is to divorce her.
So someone basically ripped up your letter and wrote a different one, presumably with your signature on the bottom.
I think what they did was they crossed out the name, Michael Grade, and wrote the name Stephen Gilbert in on my advice note.
And who do you think did that?
I'm never going to say because...
do you know?
Yeah.
Why won't you say?
I do know. Yeah, I do know.
Why won't you say?
Well, I believe that it was Dougie Smith.
I'm an ordinary person. I get by as best I can.
Yes,
but the reason I'm ringing is, when I look at the TV and listen to the radio, different radio stations, you never ever challenge the Conservatives or Rishi Sunak about halving inflation, because that won't solve the cost of living crisis. We need to get inflation.
Well, respectfully, Well, it would obviously help because it won't cost as much at Sainsbury's or Asda's. That's the reality.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the prices have still risen by 5% or whatever
or more.
percentage you
30
gets to.
30%.
We've got to get back to where it was before, and we're still carrying 20% VAT. It's unbelievable. I just can't understand it.
Right. Okay. Why do you choose? Could you have voted in Chelmsford? I sense you probably could yesterday.
I've never voted in my life. So
why?
I know.
Dave. I think what you said, a lot of people will be cheering to the echo, and the fact that VAT is so swingeing and the fact that it's so tough in the supermarkets. Why have you never voted?
Because I don't trust them. They're all the same. But the other thing is, if I could make...
How are you going to put it right, Dave?
I'm not. I'm too old.
Well, but, you're never too old. Okay.
Yeah, well, but can
what
I bring on my second
assuming
point?
you have children, don't you want to put it right?
Oh, yeah, I've got grandchildren.
Well,
yeah.
Don't you want to put it right for him, her or them?
No, I've advised my daughter and son to emigrate because the country's going to the dogs. But can I also do one other thing on the immigrant, the illegal immigrant crisis? Why hasn't anyone, all these boffins in Whitehall got, degrees from Cambridge, Oxford and all the rest of it, why haven't they just done the simple thing of sending a secret band of people over to Europe and buy up all the rubber dinghies?
I love this.
And then that's it. You don't have to do anything else.
Right. Dave, you know that in some instances they can get 30 or 40 people on board one of those dinghies, and they're paying, I understand, somewhere in the region of £5,000 or euros each. Okay?
Yeah.
So that boat is netting hundreds of thousands. Do you not think they'd find somewhere else to buy themselves a rubber dinghy?
Well, we've got to be ahead of it. We've got to think like the criminals.
We've got to buy up every rubber dinghy in...
yeah, but it'd be still
do you know what? Having got up so early, I didn't think I was going to have a laugh this morning.
Than spending £5-6 million a day on keeping them in hotels.
Yeah, okay, because they'd never find a dinghy anywhere on mainland Europe, would they, Dave?
Well, that would be the objective.
Okay. Look after the children and grandchildren, Dave. Thank you. I was going to say people like that have the vote, but Dave doesn't vote anyway.
I live out in Germany, and I always try to convince people to get out of England. If you've got the benefit of having some sort of European golden ticket, I call it. I've got an Irish passport.
Yeah.
You can come and live over here and work over here. There's industry here. The healthcare works. As soon as I came out here, I haven't seen a doctor for 10 years. As soon as I come out here, I've had a full body MOT, dentist, I've had an MRT, the list goes on. If I need to see a doctor, it's like the stories I hear from my parents. I know my doctor by his name. I can go down and see my doctor when I want to see my doctor.
Right.
Something you can't get in England.
Why did you move there, Alfie?
My missus is German.
Okay, that's it then. So you're very happy there now, and you've settled.
Well, she came to England, but she was losing her hair. I was living in London, and I'm from London, and she was like, yes, London, I can't wait. Got over it. Within 6 months, she was like, I need to leave this country.
Why? Why did she feel that way?
Just through the stress of being in England. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. When I moved out to Germany, I had a realisation, and I thought, do you know what? I feel as if I've been living a lie my whole life. I've always been told how England's the best country in the world. We got the best army in the world. We got the NHS. We've got this. When I left that country, I literally look back and think, we are living a lie. Well, you guys are living a lie. I'm not no longer.
All right. Well, good luck to you, Alfie, and I'm glad that you're happy there.
I think they have failed to lead this country at every turn. Every turn. Their incompetence killed our relatives during the pandemic, and it's killing them now. There are people waiting for operations. There are people dying as they wait for operations. One patient dies every 23 minutes in England after enduring a delay of 12 hours or more in the NHS. This is analysis of NHS figures by emergency care doctors. So that's in all, last year, over 23,000 people died last year after spending at least 12 hours in an A&E waiting for care or to be admitted to a bed. Some of them would have died anyway because of whatever they were presenting with, of course. But a 12-hour wait when you have something so wrong with you that you end up dying of it is surely contributing to many of those deaths. So the government's failure to plan a workforce in the NHS, the government's failure to properly, seriously and readily hold talks, serious talks, sensible talks about pay with the health unions is contributing to the deaths of your relatives right now, and the sickness, the ongoing sickness that maybe you yourself are experiencing because you can't get access to the care that you need, even quite basic care sometimes that you need from the NHS that you have paid for. And when we talk about paying the public sector workers in the NHS and in education, let's not forget teachers in all of this as well, given those despicable comments from Matt Hancock and Gavin Williamson, Sir Gavin Williamson. Let's not forget the contempt in which they hold you. Just don't forget it, because honestly, I've had enough of it. I have had enough of them. I've said before, I think that morally they don't have the right to serve anymore. They're not serving. They don't have the right to hold office anymore morally. I know that constitutionally they do. I get that. But if you're telling me we have to wait another 18 months, I'm not saying what the outcome will be of a general election, but that's the next time you really, I know we've got some other elections between now and then, but that's the next time you realistically have a chance to kick back at these people. That is the next time you have that chance. And I, for one, don't want to wait 18 months to really, really let them know that we've had enough of it.
I had no idea where it could have gone. I have very, very deep pockets in my winter coat, which I keep it in, or I kept it in. I will never do that again. I'll lock it in my handbag. It wasn't there. I had on one of the trains that I went on, somebody was fiddling around beside me and pushing and shoving, and I'd assumed that that's where it had gone. But when I got home, because in my Oyster card holder, I've also got my business card, somebody phoned me and said he'd seen somebody sitting on it. Most odd. He'd asked him if it was his. I know, I just don't get it. Asked him if it was his. He said, no, it wasn't. So he said, well, give it to me. So the chap took it and saw my number. So I'm very, very lucky.
Let's just get a couple of details here, if we may. Susan, where did you board the tube and where were you going?
Westminster, back to Pinner. So Jubilee line and then onto the Metropolitan line.
What sort of time of day was it?
Oh, this was mid-afternoon.
How crowded was the tube carriage?
Not like it is in the morning. I mean, people were standing, but...
and you get home, presumably, you go to get your oyster, presumably, to get off the train. That's when you go to you get off the train, you get to the barrier, and suddenly you realise you've been robbed.
Well, you realise it's not where it was, and you have no idea what's happened. And I mean, obviously, doing what I do, I know just how bad pickpocketing is on the Underground. It was the highest year ever last year. I was so cross with myself, Nick, because I thought, I should lock these things away in my handbag, and I certainly will in future. And I hope anybody listening does do that. Put it where, with a zipper over the top, so it can't be just taken out of a pocket.
So, Susan, you have your purse back minus what? Your Oyster card and your credit cards and cash? What's gone?
No, I don't keep credit cards in there. It's just literally the Oyster card and a business card, or a couple of business cards I keep in there. Right. So I'm very, very lucky, unlike many others.
So the Oyster card's gone and your cash has gone?
No, the Oyster card was still in there.
Oh, you've got everything.
I only keep the Oyster card in there. I see.
And the cash was still in there?
There was some cash in there, and that was still there.
Do you want to revise your story?
No, because I don't know what happened to it, genuinely.
Susan Hall, are you still claiming that you were pickpocketed on the tube?
I'm claiming I lost my wallet.
That's not what you initially said.
No, I had assumed I had been pickpocketed. For all I know, I still was. I genuinely do not know. I got off at I got on at Westminster with it. I got off at Pinner without it. I am more than aware of the crimes.
Why would a pickpocket not take the cash or your credit cards, or indeed the whole wallet? Why would she leave it?
Yeah, but at that point, I had no idea. At that point, I just knew I didn't have my card.
Isn't the reality it fell out of your pocket?
I don't know. It's the honest answer. I had it at Westminster. I didn't at Pinner. I have no idea.
If you can't be trusted with your wallet, Susan Hall, why can you be trusted with London?
Because we have to look. 50% increase in crimes on the London Underground. I'm aware of that. I was very lucky. I got my property back, but thousands of people don't, Nick.
But you told me today I have felt the consequences of that when a pickpocket targeted me on the London Underground. You sought to weaponise this, didn't you?
Well, I wanted to bring attention to the fact that we must be very, very careful.
And you've been caught out.
No, you're only caught out if you say something wrong.
So you said you were pickpocketed then? You're still sticking?
I don't know is the answer. I had it...
Well, let me put it another way. Do you think a professional pickpocket or any pickpocket would gain someone's wallet or purse and then leave all the cash and the credit cards in it?
The truth is I have no idea. I had it at Westminster.
You don't know. So you've just been talking about how you'll get tough on crime.
Yeah.
And you think pickpockets might be in the practice of stealing wallets and then not taking the cash.
I know that pickpockets are on the Underground and it's gone up by 50%. That is what we should be concentrating on. I was exceptionally lucky. I got mine back. I suspect you've got loads of listeners that have actually lost property on the Underground. And it's a horrible feeling when you go to get your pass or whatever, and it's not there.
So just to clarify, and we will move on after this, and is asking you to apologise. There will be no apology because you still maintain you think you could have been the victim of a pickpocket whose level of incompetence is that they get hold of your wallet and then take nothing from it.
Yes, I could have been.
I'm now 43 this year, and I'm actually going to be selling my house and moving back in with my parents. So it's quite a difficult decision, really. But it's due to the cost of living. I'm finding that I was just working all hours and being quite stressed out from work and actually not having the time to even enjoy living in my home. My mum and dad are on a variable rate mortgage, so theirs has been going up. And this morning when I heard that it gone up again, my instant thought was about their affordability. So actually for both of myself and my parents, the best idea for us is if I move in with them and we all pay a mortgage together. I don't have to work all hours and try and look after a house at the same time without getting any time for myself.
So it takes a bit of pressure off both of you, all of you. And remind me, your own home, do you own it or were you renting it, did you say?
Own it, yeah.
You own it. So you'll sell that, will you?
Yes, and the thought of like not having a mortgage and being able to get one again is quite scary. But at the same time, I've only got one life, and we need to live it. And I just feel like I'm not living; I'm just surviving on working and paying the bills. And then my mum and dad are struggling as well. But I wouldn't have been able to. I've got lots of options, so I feel really lucky. But I wouldn't have been able to buy a house in the first place if it hadn't been for my mum and dad. They gave both me and my brother deposit to buy our houses.
Yeah. And you'll have some equity from that, won't you, to underpin things?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's that pressurised, is it, work at the moment, just working to stand still, really?
So stressful in my particular job that I've been doing, and to the point it's made me quite unwell physically, mentally. And I didn't really I feel like I had a choice but to stop working there. And
can I ask what line of work you're in? I mean, you don't need to give me any detail particularly.
No, it was in health and social care.
Right, okay. Say no more.
I've got a quote here from a pretty prominent economist, and they say that Labour needs to provide an alternative for aggressive policies being prioritised by the Conservatives. The banks and those earning more than £100,000 could quite easily contribute a little more, and unless they do, inequality and poverty will inevitably soar in the months and years ahead. Do you agree with that statement?
The way that I believe that you can reduce inequality, reduce poverty, and actually also improve the living standards of ordinary working people, not in poverty, but struggling to get by, is through growing the economy. Because that is the way that we can ensure that working people have more money in their pockets and we have more money for public services. And one of the real failures over these last 13 years is to grow our economy in all parts of the country, creating those good quality, high-paid jobs. So my priority is to get that economic growth back in our economy, to lift people out of poverty and to have the money we need to invest in our schools and our hospitals and so much else of the public realm, which has been, decimated, frankly, by this Conservative government.
Well, let's bring in another caller who's got a similar point to make. Phil in Broadstairs. Hello, Phil.
Good evening, Ian. Hello, Rachel. Yes,
Hi, Phil.
in sort of answer to that last call, or adding to it, you said you came into politics to change things, and yet all I've heard from you and the front bench is Tory policies for a Tory crisis. You're not going to tax wealth. You're not going to do much with income tax. You're leaving the profits of the banks, the water and the energy untouched. I remember very well, because I was born in that period, the Attlee government. And what they came in with was a 4-letter word, hope. You aren't communicating hope. There is no ambition in evidence in what you're doing. And they had a much harder job than you've got to rebuild the country after the Second World War. COVID is bad. 2008 was terrible. But austerity has to be stopped. And you seem to be wanting to carry on worshipping the Treasury, because you are an ex-banker, Bank of England banker, and you don't seem to be in making any kind of ambition clear to me as a voter, or the public as voters, whether you're prepared to rise to these challenges, which are far worse than what we had in World War II.
So what's your actual question?
Well, the question is, why are you employing Tory policies to deal with a Tory crisis?
Well, I mean, just going back to Helena's question, you know, the economist that she quoted, that was actually you.
Well, look, I mean, I want to reduce poverty and inequality. I didn't go into politics, but how do you do that? What are the practical things that we can do?
Well, your suggestion in that quote was to tax the banks more and those earning more than £100,000 more, but you've gone back on that.
Well, look, the way that I think that we can lift people out of poverty and reduce inequality, as I say, is to get the economy growing, and that has been the missing ingredient these last 13 years. Now, you know, Phil sort of says, oh, I'm an ex-banker. Yes, I am an ex-Bank of England economist, and the one thing I learnt more than anything at the Bank of England is your sums have always got to add up. And what we saw less than a year ago was a Prime Minister and a Chancellor who decided to throw that very simple truth that your sums have got to add up out of the window.
Well, hello there. I want to ask if a teacher could be asked to teach something that they disagree on the basis of their faith, please.
Are you the teacher, Carl?
I am.
What are you being asked to teach that you don't want to teach?
Something that is against my faith.
Can you be a little more specific?
LGBT, for example.
When you say teach LGBT, what does that mean?
It has been made part of the curriculum, as you may know. And it's every teacher's responsibility now to teach it.
But teach what about it? What is it that you object to?
The whole thing. I disagree with it because my faith doesn't allow me to, to teach that subject as it is required.
Okay, so
I cannot be.
I mean, what is it you don't? What subject do you teach, Carl?
Conflict there.
What subject do you teach, Carl?
I teach English.
Right, and why does an English teacher need to teach about LGBT issues?
The school has made the arrangement of every form tutor to teach.
It has a form tutor. Okay.
That subject, yes.
What age kids do you teach?
Secondary school.
Secondary school. What age? What year are the kids in your form?
From 11 to 16.
No, the kids. You said you're doing it in your capacity as a form tutor rather than an English teacher. So what year are the kids in your form?
9.
Year 9. So they're about 13, 14 years old.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just help me with this. Do you think that homosexuality is wrong? Is that why you don't want to mention it at all?
No, I do not. I have no personal issues. My views are personal to me, but teaching it as it is.
So what is the lesson they want you to teach? This is what I'm struggling with, Carl. What's the lesson they want you to teach? I mean, are they asking you to teach that everybody should practice homosexuality? What is it they're asking you to teach that you object to?
You're asking me too many questions. I really.
Well, it's a very. You object on grounds of your faith, Carl. This is obviously something you've thought about a lot.
The whole thing of teaching it, please. Yeah.
This is obviously something that's given you a great deal of grief, and you've thought about it a lot, and you've struggled with your conscience. All I'm trying to work out is what it is you object to teaching. Are they asking you to say everyone should practice gay sex? and you object to that? Are they asking you to say that gay people exist in the world, and you object to that? What is it?
It's the whole practice. So my religion is against that. So I do find it myself very uncomfortable in teaching it. That's it.
Okay, and I'm not going to ask you what religion you are, but are you? Do you practice a religion where some adherents believe homosexuality is wrong, but others don't? Or do you practice?
I can tell you that the school in which I work,
that's not what I asked you.
People from different faith groups do find themselves so uncomfortable, like myself.
All right,
it's not
Carl,
just one religion.
Carl, I'm going to answer your question, then I'm going to move on. The law says that everybody has a right to beliefs and to manifest those beliefs. However, that has to be balanced against the need for somebody to do their job. And it is absolutely fundamental that teachers teach the curriculum. You cannot get out of teaching something you don't like by waving the religion flag. There are all sorts of cases on this. For example, a registrar who didn't want to conduct gay civil ceremonies when civil ceremonies were the only way of gay couples being together legally. He lost his claim for religious discrimination because the courts basically said, oh, you've got to get on with it because your employer's entitled to expect you to get on with it. And the same is going to happen with you, Carl. If you refuse to teach anything to do with homosexuality, I suspect you will be dismissed and you won't have a claim there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
I just wanted to know where the law stands in this. Yeah.
Okay, Carl, thank you very much.
Hello, sorry to bother you.
You're not bothering us, Bob. We ask people to phone in, so don't worry about that.
I'm going to put the cat amongst the pigeons.
Oh dear. Okay.
Right, now, I'm just an ordinary lad.
Yeah.
Worked hard all my life. Took my kids to, I don't know if I can say it, Clitheroe. They had a private place there where my daughter went.
Right.
Well, people to me at the moment, I'm 57, okay? People to me want. They want their Netflix. They want their new super-duper phones. They want their new BMWs or Audis A3s. They want, and then they expect everybody else to help them out. Well, you have to pull, not everybody, don't get me wrong, not everybody, but you have to pull your belt in and do without things to do what you have to do.
But Bob, like the average childcare cost is 14 grand. You're not going to be able to, you can cut back your Netflix all you like, you're not going to be able to afford it.
Listen, I was just working on the bins.
Right.
In Clitheroe.
Yeah.
With the council wages, and the council wages are very, very poor. And yet I could do a private school.
But things have changed. I mean, when was that, Bob?
She's 23 now.
So when were you doing that in Clitheroe?
My average wage was about £250.
Yeah, but when was this?
I moved up north in 2000. I think she was 6 months. Yeah, about 23 years.
But housing costs are so much more expensive than it was then. You know, things have changed. Like, it's not that easy.
Don't laugh. My poll tax was dearer in Clitheroe than what it was downtown.
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, of course. There's always going to be some variations. But housing costs are massively increased in the last 20 years, both in house price costs and rents, in relative terms. So it's not the same.
They still want their good phones. They still want this.
Oh,
they
come
still
on,
want
Bob.
that.
Like, you know, Bob, you can get look, if your average cost is 14 grand, right, for a childcare place, you can have a rubbish phone. You can have no Netflix.
Exactly, I did.
Well, okay, fine, yeah, but smartphones weren't around then. But all right, like
I know. Well, no, tell a lie, mate. I had a phone because I was doing Continental beforehand.
Okay, but my point is, what I'm saying to you is, you can cancel your Netflix, whatever that is, £8 a month. Yeah. You can get a cheap phone or whatever. It ain't going to amount to 14 grand.
I know, but that you have to pull your strings in.
Yeah, but what
to allow you to do it?
Yeah, but what
I had to. I wasn't on mega money. I had a cheap little runaround car what I bought from the auction for £500. I run that until it got on its knees, and I worked my backside off, and that's what we've got to do.
But is it not possible, Bob? Is it not possible, Bob, that there's something wrong? That what you're basically saying is that individual agency matters is most. Is it not possible that the structure, doesn't matter how much effort you make and how much agency you try and apply, that the structure of the system is so bust, is so broken, that it doesn't matter what you do as an individual. Surely you can see that.
They've got more help. They've got more help now. And I do agree with that gentleman saying that his daughter or his child could not get in because there's not enough people.
Yeah.
There's somewhere along the line, something's not right. The government should actually just say, right, that's how much you get and fund it down, like they do with the doctors. They get so much per child.
All right. Okay.
And not actually beg money from us, like to beg money to do the job.
All right, Bob. Bob in St Helens there would say, perfectly fine, but as I say, I do get a bit frustrated with this argument about Netflix and phones or whatever. This is not modern Britain. Like, it doesn't matter. You can get rid of Netflix, you get rid of your phone. When rent is so high, when mortgages are so high, when inflation is so high, when childcare is so high, childcare costs are so high, you can cut that back as you want, but like the sort of slightly boomerish view that, that if everyone, it was just so much, it was just as hard back then as it is now. No, it wasn't. Look at any of the data, any of the metrics. Things are harder now than it was then. I know some of you will be spitting into your afternoon coffee at that, but it is just factually true.